For those that don't know me, I'm Michael Tribble, a field service out of the Children's store, and I figure I'll be hearing from all y'all quite a bit this year. Maybe this will cut down on some of the questions getting started early. I guess first thing I want to bring up, because it seems to be the big question nowadays, is about the one button, end of day button, and what that is. For you guys that's run it before, you know the clean out procedure at the end of the day is always hold your floor switch, select your manual wrap request, then hold your auto button, which works fine unless you've got an emergency, anything going on and you panic to get it out of there. And the call I always get is after the manual wrap request, it says not in auto mode. And of course, like I say, if you do it every day, it's not bad. You remember to tap the top of the button and go. This one button unload, what it is your emergency kill button on top of your hydro handle, the yellow button. All you do is press and hold it. Of course, it's going to kill your units, and you can kill your fan and cleaners now too if you need to. They actually took care of that in, I think, year model 16 with software. Y'all's pickers should still do it. I think y'all still got the 7760. You should be able to kill your units and your fan too if you want to clean it out. And you hold the button until it kicks it out. It will actually eject it for you now. And we agreed on $350 is what it was. Total price is what this runs. It's just a software upgrade. And on the strippers, you have to recalibrate the cleaner and the header. Pickers, it's just a drop-in deal. No calibration required. Pass the sheet around. Everybody saw a while ago. Did everybody get a chance to look at that? On the one button, end of day. And the only other physical part that goes on it is a sticker. And it shows a picture of the sticker on the deal there. Just replaces your floor switch. I'll pass that around if everybody wants to look at it. Okay. Other than that, I guess let's start at the front of the machine and kind of work back. Units. The actual physical unit is the same as y'all were used to on a 7460. I'm talking about the brush rollers, the bearings, sensing shoe, down to the sensor on the side up to your model 18. They did change the style of sensor on the 19 model, so y'all will have to carry two different types of sensors. Anybody that's got a 19, we'll see how the longevity of this new sensor is, but the old sensor is just the same as what your 7460s were. Picker guys, that is the same sensor too on your header. There's 6 of them on a picker, and there is of course 8 of them on a stripper head. Now that same sensor is also used on the gate, the rock shaft, and the handler. So there is 4 additional ones of those sensors on this machine. Your height sensing on the CS machines, all of them 14 and up, they are different from your 7460. In the fact, before, the way the valve returned, the way it worked is it blocked return oil to raise it, and then when it let off, it just let the cylinder bleed off. It's like a one-way cylinder. These do have a pressure in return valve, so and these are a lot more sensitive, where you'll see the difference. Like a 7460, you would go over a hump and it takes longer to come down. This one will actually ride the hump. It'll actually ride the rows if you need it to. The one thing about this, if you do have height sensing issues with a single unit, on the 7460 you could unplug the sensor, see if it'd come up to the top. That checked your hydraulics, that checked your box. If it was completely dead, it was in your box. These are critical on checking the codes on it, because one, Once the system fails on an individual unit, that unit is dead until the key is cycled. So keep that in mind. If you've got a dead unit, and these have been setting codes for every little bobble we found in them, but so far they have been pretty reliable. Other than that, units are the same, bearings the same. The speed sensors are different. We want to take a look at this speed sensor where they come in. Your late model 7460 guys are in the same spot, but it's no longer a 2-wire sensor. It's the plug below it here that comes in is your speed sensor. Okay. And they do use a different sensor than if y'all have got any for your 7460s. And I always get the question, can you use a 7460 unit on one of these? Yes. You have to relocate the speed sensor and change the speed sensor type, but they will work. Of course, you'll have to get the unit itself will work. You do have to get the different sensing box. One improvement they did make in 19 is this cast extension piece. I think everybody was looking at it. Extreme situations, you know, that we've heard about them cracking, everything else, so they went with this to beef that part of it up. All in all, we haven't had many issues with in the past with it, but they did improve the strength of this. This air chute, they're all shipped from the factory this way. I'm kind of glad it's in the choke down position. We'll go ahead and change it over. We're going to open it up. Right here is good for small cotton, maximum separation, you know, green bowls, just like your air doors were on the 7460. Once you get rolling just a little bit and get comfortable with this machine, we found in this position, you tend to choke up at the throat pretty quick. The restriction on these machines is the throat going through to the air chute. To give you an example on how much cotton this will handle, the most cotton I've ever heard going through one, it was 4.75 bales an acre, and he could run almost 2 miles an hour. And when it choked, it would choke at the air chute. But still, that amount of cotton is unreal on what these will handle. The Go Cotton app. Go Cotton app does have how to change this, different settings for it. And what you're opening the throat up here at the top, your door is still the same adjustment as a 7460 on the bottom. And you do have a tremendous amount of air on these machines. You won't be shy of air as in the past on some of them. Of course, the diesel tank, when you change your fuel filters, be sure and shut your valve off here, because it will continually run diesel out when you take that primary filter off. So pickers, your picker guys are just the same, except the tank's on the other side, same type of valve. Air chute, pretty much the same, 7460, previous models. Cleaner, they do have different shafts in them than the 7460s. 7460s drove on the right side of the machine over here. These drive on the left side. And they did go to a double belt. Let's take a look at it over here. Everything, and these are a hydraulic drive motor on these machines. Went to 2 belts. Your slip clutches, everything are the same on previous models and the 7460s. Grease certs all in one spot. Of course, it's a 50-hour grease. That's what they recommend. Trash chutes. We have had some issues with the trash chutes stopping up whenever you get a high volume on them. If you will tilt them further back, straight up and down, it seems to get rid of the trash a little better. Because what happens when you get a massive amount of burrs coming out, it's catching on the back of this rock shaft housing. If you'll open them up, straighten them up quite a bit, that will stop that'll stop that trash chute from stopping up. And of course you'll notice it because you'll have one burr trail more prevalent than the other. So, and if nothing else, they did give you a clean out door here on the front too. I'll leave that off for everybody to see. And that does come in handy, by the way. Anybody in the past had troubles with the burrs stopping up like that? Okay. And straight, yes. It's
been on the right side more so than the left.
And it's funny, and the next machine may pick the left side. It's no rhyme or reason to it. So, just straightening yours up helped considerably.
Dump it straight down.
Yep. Back to your fuel filters. There is a fuel strainer right here. New machines, check that daily. That way any plastic shavings, water, anything that might have been left over, check that daily for about 2 weeks. Some machines you'll have a little show up in, some you won't. And once again, turn the valve off on the bottom of the tank when you take it loose.
Is there a cleaning procedure after you take it loose?
No. Good question there. When you change the fuel filters or check this strainer for any reason, this is a gravity feed system, and then the fuel is picked up by electronic fuel pump, so it will purge all the air out completely. What I recommend to guys after you change the fuel filters, you'll see when you turn it on, they just about fill up that bowl up before you can get the door shut on it. But turn your key on and let the fuel pump run its cycle. It's 120-second or 2-minute cycle. Turn it on, do that twice before you start it. That will make sure that it pushes all the air out. And fuel filters, if you'll change them about every other time you change the engine oil, which I don't know how long y'all do run the engine oil. Most of my guys run it 250 hours. If you'll change the fuel filters every 500, that should keep you on track where you don't have any issues whatsoever. And talking about that, hydraulic oil, the recommendation is 400 hours change. And it's approximately 60 gallons in this tank. And you look at the functions of what this hydraulic oil does, I think 400 hours is a good point to change it. You know, the tractors they recommend 1,500 hours on, and we have found that if you'll change it at 1,500, you have a whole lot less SCV troubles. Well, this oil does a lot more than what a tractor hydraulic oil does. So, oil will wear out, is what I'm getting at. And it may not be, how do you word it? It may not be a problem you see immediately, but there are a lot of pumps through here that oil runs through. Fresh oil, filter's the cheapest thing you can buy. Oil's the same way. So, also, a lot of people overlook this gear case in here. If everybody will take a look, there is a sight glass right here. On new machines, change it at 50 hours. To drain it, the easiest way to drain it is take this hose loose right here. And for the early model guys that fill that up, you do not have to take the breather out to fill it up anymore. They do have a funnel spout back here where you change your engine oil at. Right next to it, that is the spout that fills this up. It'll take approximately 3 to 4 gallons of hydraulic oil, just high guard is what it takes.
Every 50 hours?
No, the first time is 50 hours and the rest is seasonal, 400 hours. The other separate oil cavity on this is the transmission. And it has a sight glass on it in here. Same on new machines. 50 hours you want to get rid of the new oil. The easiest way to do it there is take this line loose. And it will drain that oil out of the transmission. There's an elbow, just a pipe elbow with a pipe cap. Your transmission will take 5 gallons of hydraulic oil. And it is also a seasonal change. Final drives? Yes, pickers are the same way. Now the picker's pump stack is different. I'll have to look and point out to you which hose is where. But on the picker, if you'll follow the hose in the bottom of the gear case and just take it loose, and then because this is actually the gear case pump, steering pump, transmission pump. That's your 3 little pumps, small pumps on either the picker or the stripper. So follow the double stacked one is going to be your gear case. The single one will be your transmission. And take the oil loose on it, and it's just high guard, like I say, high guard hydraulic oil that goes back in that. And earlier guys, they put the batteries right above the filters right above the batteries. So it makes a nice mess when you got to change hydraulic filters and batteries at the same time. Later models, they did move the batteries back here. Filters are still up here. If anybody wants to look at this back here. And also, back here above the batteries are a series of breakers and fuses. If you've got some really odd codes coming up, especially on new machines, just make sure that the nuts are tight on the fuse breakers back here, fuses and breakers. And it won't be a single code, it will be several codes come up. We've just had a little bit of problem. Of course, those are checked before we leave too, so, but still they can shake loose. If anybody wanted to see the little, it used to be yellow, they changed it. The little cap you take off here is for the gear case oil. And they did make it easier to get to. You still kind of have to have a flex funnel to get it filled, but it is a whole lot easier than it was. This is your exhaust filter here. This is a good place to huddle around when it's nice and cold and you're warming up in the morning. Do keep this clean. It stays pretty clean as it is, but really double check it because the temperatures can get pretty hot in here. So far, we've had good luck with this right here. No problems, fires, anything like that coming off of this. This does stay clean, but keep an eye on it. Differential oil. It also takes high guard. And I believe the recommendation on it is a 1,500 hour service on it for the differential. The hubs, it would not hurt to change those yearly. Also, I missed the final drives up here. Final drives are the same way. As heavy as these machines are, it might not be a bad idea to use the synthetic gear oil due to heat. When we first start out, I know a lot of y'all guys rode them quite a ways. The synthetic helps cut down on the heat, and that could be in either or. It isn't mandatory, but the synthetic does offer a little bit more protection against the heat. And I would recommend the hubs yearly. Same as a sprayer. All you sprayer guys, changing the hub oil is cheap maintenance for leaks and preventive maintenance. Any questions so far? On the oils, pumps, final drives, anything like that before we move on? Sensors? Nothing? Okay. The def. It is hard to fill the DEF with the jug. I know a lot of guys went to some type of DEF pump to put it in. The key thing about DEF is try to keep it as clean as possible, because all DEF pump failures are due to contamination of some kind. Dirt. Sometimes you'd be surprised on what you find in the bottom of a DEF tank when you pull the header out of it, even trying to keep it clean. So a jug and a funnel may work, but like I say, everybody may want to look at some type of DEF pump or container. Touched on the batteries back here. Your fuel filters I was talking about changing earlier are back here. Engine oil. DEF unit. There is a filter on this DEF pump right here. And I believe the recommended change on it is 3 year, 3,000 hour. So, and this is on your tractors too. The final Tier 4 engines. Question?
That's it right there?
Yes, unscrew this out the bottom and it's this cartridge style filter that goes in there. And it is the same on all final Tier 4 tractors, except it's under your steps on it. This one is a whole lot easier to get to. And it does come with a little removal tool in the filter when you buy it. Also, while we're under here, if you are working underneath the baler, you're going to take any hydraulic hoses loose. This is the lock for the handler cylinders. And it's a good idea, especially if you have it laid down in transport configuration. You're going to be working under it, like I say, hydraulic hoses, anything like that. Lock the handler and lock the baler both. Now with the baler, and we'll go over that in a minute, with the baler in transport configuration, your handler cylinders are doing all the work for the handler and the baler. So when you lock this one out, that is to prevent it from leaking down any further. Of course, your gate lock is whenever you're going through your R&B service, morning service. And I thought they were overstressing this whenever I learned it, but when you get to reading, this is very, very helpful. Right now, the machine is in harvest configuration. Configuration is the physical mode that the machine is actually in. When you lay it down to move it, that is transport configuration. And the reason I say this, and I'll show y'all on the monitor in just a minute when we turn it on, down in the bottom left-hand corner of the monitor, it will tell you what mode you are in. You may be in the right configuration to do what you are trying to do, but you may be in the wrong mode in the display. If you want to harvest cotton, of course it has to be in harvest configuration, but you also have to have harvest mode selected on your display. Like I say, I kind of thought this was being nitpicky or petty at first, knowing the difference between configuration and mode, but it actually does have a legitimate point. Right down here, this bottom right corner, the circle, that is off mode. So if you were trying to harvest, off mode does not work. But with the latest software, when you turn your fan cleaner and units on, it will kick it to harvest mode. Like I say, that's kind of redundant. It seems kind of nitpicking, but when you're trying to harvest, look down there in that bottom corner, and if you don't see the little stripper, then you're not in harvest mode. And a lot of times you'll get a message or a code that comes up, says cannot initiate mode change, you know, something to that effect. You've got either a gate not closed, something like that, and then that's when you can look on your corner post, and if the gate is blinking, then your gate didn't shut all the way due to you let off the button too quick, cotton, something like that. I'll go over that here in a minute. Pins in the belts, that's what I really wanted to make sure that I say at least once, if not several times. It is a really good idea to change your pins every year in the belts, in the Baler belts. Let me rephrase that, because the feeder belt, you're never going to change the pin in the feeder belt. It won't come out. But your Baler belts, you may think they're not going to come out, but they will eventually come out. The problem with pins are, any hay baler guys in here, this thing is harder on pins than a hay baler ever thought about being. The narrow belts, they are the same pin, same lace as the 567, 8, 9 balers. The lock on them, it is a really good idea to change them at the beginning of the year and carry you some extras too. And if anybody's got a really good way to get them out, share it with everybody, because vice grips, a hammer, and a punch seem to be the ticket to them.
Pneumatic hammer.
A pneumatic hammer with a, did you get a punch that would fit down in there?
I think we ended up building something that I welded a rope or a Allen wrench.
Uh-huh.
The same size, and it'll shoot them right on out.
And it shoots them out pretty good. What about broke pins?
You just gotta weave it in there.
Okay, same story with it. So, because that's what.
The end of that belt off. Sometimes they're broken 2 or 3 different places, and you ain't gonna. And it breaks the bindings in that belt, and you're just screwed.
Yep. Then you can just cut. All you can do is cut them out, cut the lace out. And if you do end up having to cut a lace out, cut it as close to the lace as possible. That way it'll save you for adding any extensions or anything to the belt. But yes, he did break. That's the point I was going to make. What happens if you don't change the pins is they will eventually break in about 3 pieces down that lace. And you might get the end 2 pieces out, but a lot of times that center piece, end up cutting the belt. Even if the machine is low houred, because I know we've got a few used machines with just 100 or so hours on them, I would still probably, especially your belts that run on your center pulleys underneath. I'll now show y'all which 2 I'm talking about. What it is, it's the 2 pulleys that have the wrap cams on them. Those 2 belts get the most amount of pressure, because that's what actually holds your wrap floor against the bottom deck to get the tension to pull your wrap through. And those laces have to go right over the top of those pulleys. So those are the 2 that are absolutely critical to check. Like I think your machine, you just got less than 200 hours on it. I would still change. You may not change, if you don't want to change all the pins, I would definitely change the 10. I'll show you which 2 they are. Otherwise, I would say yearly on all pins. If you press and hold over a button, it will tell you, see that says harvest. If you got questions on what it is, just press and hold on it. Like if you're reading in the operator's manual and not familiar and it says the harvest mode, hold the button and it'll show you. This right here, bell with the wrench, is the RMB service. This is the button that even if you don't drive the machine and you're part of the cleanup crew, you definitely need to know what this button does, because you will use this button every day on cleanup. And that's where we will go next, is the RMB service. Any questions before we move on there? And like I say, you guys running the yield monitors, I do want to show everybody that plans on running one of these how to get this back to the little screen. So that can be a challenge. But we'll cover that before we leave. I guess you want to start it?
Yep. Ready?
Yep. And then I'll get you to mash the... No, we ain't going to mash the lever yet. Okay, what we're going to do... Hey, just a second before you start it. What we'll do is start it up, and then we're going to go to RMB service, and I'll show you which. It's the first step you have to do no matter what you do in the morning. It's to open the gate, and we will refer to that as gate and cradle. What it is, the gate is going to open and the handler is going to catch it, and that's going to be our first mode of service. All right, go ahead and start it. See this? Do is go to here. And right here, gate and cradle. I'm going to show them again. Right here on your tether. We're going to hold the D button. Go ahead and kill it. Like I said, this is what we refer to as gate and cradle mode, or configuration. Excuse me, I caught myself there. Once again, configuration is physically what the machine is setting in. Cleanup, guys, right here, this is probably going to be your first step after the initial blow off of the machine. I know everybody has kind of their own method. So do you guys start with it folded up?
Yes, sir.
Blow everything off, bust it down, and then clean it coming back up?
Yes, sir.
That seems to be the general consensus on everybody on cleanup. Right here, like I say, this definitely needs to be done daily, because this is where you're going to check your belts, your belt laces, anything like that. And you've got to be careful, because if you've got a lace is real bad about tearing on one corner or part of it coming off. You kind of want to address that pretty quick, because what it will do running through the baler, it will actually tear a little piece off of the belt, and it will pick a roller somewhere in there, and it will start wrapping around it, and it'll get tight, and then it'll bust that belt and then wrap it down. And you do not want to fish one of these belts through there manually. If you do bust a belt, find it, you can pin the new belt to the old belt and suck it through. It's where a lot of your trash and your buildup are underneath the rock shaft right in front. And we'll let the belts off here in a second. I'll kind of show y'all where the bulk of the stuff gets. The next steel I'm going to select, your A button is actually going to run your baler. You'll be able to run the baler with it. The D button will let the rock shaft pressure off, and the C button will put the pressure back on. Now, anytime y'all go into this mode and you let the pressure off the rock shaft, when you start back, it's not uncommon to see a code that says rock shaft pressure low. Don't worry about that code. It just didn't, once you start running the baler, it will tighten back up and go off. I get that call quite regular. Not every machine will do it. One machine might do it every time, and then you've got another machine that may never do it. So, now if it comes on when you're baling, that's a different story. But after you come out of RMB service, don't worry about that code. Okay, I guess we're ready to check the belts. We're going to go back to RMB service, which is right here. You're going to go to the second icon on the top. Right here. All right, the A button is going to run your belts. And this is where you can watch for any broken belts. Like I say, the main thing is inspecting your lace. Okay, to change a belt or to change a lace, as you see, I've got the laces right here on the bottom. All right. Relieve the pressure off the rock shaft. Now you've got your lace you can work with. Once I rolled it over there, and you can roll that over as many times as you need. Another word of caution, on a dewy, wet morning, be really, really careful back here on this ramp. I promise you, your head will bounce off the bottom pretty quick. Everybody laughing's already done that, so.
When you got dry leaves on there.
Oh yeah, dry leaves makes it pretty slick too. You can run your belts through. It doesn't hurt. You can sit down underneath here because the feeder belt does not turn during this. Now this starter roll does, so watch yourself on the starter roll. If you need to change belts, pins, anything, right here is where we would do it. Like I say, roll the belt over, get the lace right here where you can get to it. Now on a belt change, let's just see if one of these will come out. We'll get the right tools, and I'll go through this with anybody. Like I told you, and these are new pins. Imagine if they're wore. Drop the back side of the belt down, and this way, going here, pin your new belt to the front half. You'll tighten your rock shaft back up, and then hit your A button and run it through. Now there are wide and narrow belts. That's the only difference between these two. And like I say, even I have run a belt through that only had about an inch of lace left. And then I've had them where it had an inch of lace left and it gets tangled up and won't go through. But try to catch your belts before that happens, just for the simple fact of ease of installation. Because like I say, a broken belt wrapped around in there is not easy to thread through manually. Because I will hear from you when that happens. As far as powdering the belts, I don't know if y'all have heard about that or I've talked to y'all about it before. That's kind of a last resort for belt tracking. Another thing that you want to look at here, belt tracking, look and see if you've got a belt running up on or over another belt. New machines or new belts are what you have to watch at first for a little while. Your older machines, the belt's already worn in. Most of the time, you don't have any issue with belt tracking. If you do see something with an older machine, take a look. You've either got a guide bent, you've got something under a roller. You guys that know it's got the rotary brush up here in the front of the baler. You picker guys, it's that thin little brush that always builds cotton up behind it and bends. The stripper has a rotary brush. It actually looks like the stripper brushes you use in the front. If you've got a belt that's tracking funny, look and see if those brushes are wore in the area of that belt. Because what it'll do, it doesn't knock the cotton off when it comes around, and it'll work its way through there and get underneath a roller or something and push that belt over. Now back to new belts, new machines. Pay careful attention daily to your belt tracking for about 2 weeks. If you do have a belt that is running off to one side, same procedure, unpin it and put a twist in the belt to turn the belt to flip it over on one side. Pin it back together, run it through. What you're doing is you're letting the machine flip the belt over itself. Unpin it, pin it back right, and see if it tracks true. And that's only if you've got one belt. Now if you got multiple belts on one side, that's a different deal. Call me on that. because there's no real one simple answer on that one. A lot of times flipping a belt might straighten it right up. If by chance it does, if it's tracking off to the right and you flip it and it tracks off to the left, thread a new belt through it and try that belt in a different location. Because every now and then you'll find a belt that just does not like where that's at. Another thing we found, older machines, if you put a belt on the outside, it acts like it's way too long and starts tracking real funny. Inconsistent, I guess would be the best word for it. If you run into that problem, pull one of the center belts out and put it on the outside and put the new belt on the inside. I know that's an extra step of work, but that has corrected a lot of our issues with belts. And it's not that way on every machine, but just to bring it to your attention, just in case, if you have a, and it, like I say, when you put the belt in, it will actually, which they all, a new belt anyway, compared to your old ones, will look a little longer. But if you have tracking problems with that new belt, you may need to pull it and move it to the inside. Clean up, guys. Right here's another way, another part that I was wanting to tell y'all about. Anybody that hadn't seen this, if they want to get up here, a couple of y'all get up here to show you. Okay, now this is after you've let the rock shaft pressure off. Right in here, these loose belts, they can be stacked full of cotton. And right here is where you really want to clean them off. Right there where it loops down. And of course it's going to fall down below and you'll have to clean it again. But right here is critical on getting this cotton out of here.
Check it every day.
Check it every day. And if for some reason you have to let the rock shaft off during the middle of the day, it don't hurt to check it then too, if you're in this position. But it'll right in here is where it'll bend, and then if you leave it, like say it rains and you didn't clean it out and you have to leave it for a couple of weeks, sometimes it'll start sticking to that roller. So don't only look at the cotton here, look and make sure it didn't ground into that roller above it. Okay. And other than that, you know, everything else is kind of self-explanatory right here. On the back side in here, you may get a little on top of that roller back. Let me open it for the camera, right back here, but it's usually nothing major in here. Right here is going to be your trouble clean area. Mm-hmm. And like I say, everything will tighten right back up. Speaking of cleaning the rollers, and I'll touch more on this when we get back to the wrap, but it really applies all the way through the machine to belts, rollers, anything. A really good cleaning solution is acetone, and not fingernail polish remover. Go to the hardware store and get straight acetone. The reason I say that, because I have had people try fingernail polish remover before, and it does not contain enough acetone to cut the glue on. I mean, it's better than nothing, but it won't cut the glue on the wrap if you have issues with that. It doesn't hurt to scrub the rollers, metal or rubber rollers, with the acetone. What else we found works pretty good? The little dish pad that you wash dishes with, the green and yellow ones, they work really well on scrubbing these rubber rollers. Between that and the shop towel, they work good, and it does not hurt to put acetone in a squirt bottle. That's another thing we figured out. On the back, when you're cleaning all the glue off the wrap rollers, I have found on new machines, if you use way too much acetone and it spills on the bottom, that acetone will start making that paint sticky. So squirt bottle with acetone will work pretty good. And like I say, I'll touch more on that when we get back to the wrap system. Leslie made a good point, because I thought it myself for a while. Talking about how slick it is up here, put some sandpaper steps or something. You don't want to do that, because that's where your bale slides out. That is the ramp for your bale. You do not want to restrict that any way possible. So, because telling them, you'll test the soles on your boots to see how good a grip you got on there. And of course you got to look and make sure nobody else saw you do it too. So, also while you're up here, y'all might come around to the other side. Okay, clean up guys, especially right down in this hole. Make sure you get all the cotton and everything out of it. This is actually where the baler latches in, right here. And not only does the gate shut, it drops to lock behind this hook. And we'll look at that when we go back together with it here after a while. But you want to make sure, because enough cotton packs down in here, it can cause the gate not to lock in. Also, keep an eye, there is a sensor up here with a white tag on it. Make sure that the front of this hinge is not hitting that sensor. New machines, it may be just wear in adjustment, move the sensor back and forth. Older machines might need to look, see what's causing it, see if you got any wear in your pins, anything like that. But that should not actually contact the sensor itself. And there is a sensor on both sides, and this sensor works. They actually call it a proximity sensor. Any of you guys that look up parts on the web on your own, proximity sensor, it's just a magnetic sensor, off on switch. It will close and open with the presence or absence of ferrous metal passed in front of it. So if by some reason a bolt or washer gets stuck to it, the machine doesn't think that the gate ever opened, which that's not necessarily a problem back here, but it can be on your R&B latch sensors. Reason I wanted y'all over here, and I'll show you more when we lay it down, but right here is, they call it the lay down roller chain. And this is the roller in the front of the baler that kind of mashes the cotton that's coming out of the accumulator down the feeder belt. It kind of mashes it down to where it will feed in. This is driven by an 80, it's a size 80 chain. New balers, check this thing every day for about 2 weeks. Same rule of thumb on any chain, no matter what it's on, roughly 5/8 inch slack. After that, check it about every 50 to 100 hours. Because what happens if this chain gets too loose, number one, it can choke you at your feeder belt. But the big thing you don't want it to happen, it'll break the end off of that shaft and it'll swallow that roller. So, and I think we've had a couple of them do that in the past. Plus, the older systems, which I think I've already talked to all the 7760 guys, and we've converted to the new drive. There's a new style coupler that connects the chain to the actual roller. But you're looking out there, like I say, I guess we've only got two 7760 guys here, don't we? And yeah, we did y'all's last year. Other than that, the point I wanted to make here, while you're running your belts, checking them, about every 50 hours, lube this chain. When you're running your belts, this chain will be moving. You can just reach around the corner right here, spray your lube on it, and get that part taken care of. Now, to take this cover off and check it, we actually have to lay it down in transport configuration. Checking your antifreeze right here, you can check it here, or it's a lot easier while it's in transport. But lube your chain while you got it here. That way it moves. I would say this is probably one of the most overlooked points of service on all machines, is this chain. Of course, when it gets to the end of the slack, your chain's wore out. Usually it gets the drive sprocket and the chain, but that is 80 chain. And the way I count links, if anybody wants to write it down, it's 31 links on 80 chain is what it is. So, because I know different parts book count it different ways. Different parts books counts each roller as a link, believe it or not. To me, a link is 2 pins, 2 rollers. So it's 31 counting it that way, 31 plus your master. Any questions on that? And like I say, you new guys, new machines, check this every day. And it would not surprise me one bit if this was loose every day. So, and 5/8 slack. Okay, bearings, I always get calls on the big baler bearings. They are a once a year 400-hour grease. Really no more than that. That way you don't bust the seals out of them, anything like that. But just about every 400 hours is what they recommend. Up here, again, is your 50-hour grease points. Right here above my hand, there's a Zert. This cylinder does not have one, but you do have another one up in here. And that is all a 50-hour service. Check, you know, also while you're inspecting your latch hole here, check your actual hook here. Make sure your bolts ain't broke off, uneven wear on your hitch, anything on your hook, anything like that. If you do start seeing excessive wear, you can go in here and shim these up just a little bit, and you probably want to take care of that because it sits there and it'll just hammer back and forth, and it'll finally get to when you get a big bale in there, it'll spread it open and say your gate's open. And just like you hay baler guys, once it says that gate's open, you're kind of done. Because it won't wrap, it will not do anything if it thinks the gate is open. While you're under here too, and we'll touch more in just a minute on the wrap, but you can clean some of these hard to reach places out right here by these wrap drive pulleys. Get a little bit of it while you're under here, because it's harder to get to this when it's laid down a lot of times. And plus it gives you a different angle, a different point to look at it too. So, oh, and by the way, these do not have the new improved fingers on them. I thought all the 19s did, but the fingers, I'll point that out when we get back here, but they do have some new improved, what they call them, the duck bills. And I'll go over that in just a second. Also, this curtain is tied up. The sweeper curtain down here, I'm just going to leave it tied up for now, but I want to make everybody aware it's here. Everybody asks if they can take that off or do anything like that. I would not recommend it, because what this curtain does is the debris builds up on this ramp, and when you dump it, it actually sweeps it off there. It is by all means very essential on what it's doing. Guys, I was telling you to watch the center two belts. If you'll look right here, this pulley and this pulley, these are called your wrap cams. All right, when this wrap floor engages, it puts extra pressure on these two belts right here. These are two right here are the pins you want to really watch. If you have a broken pin, more than likely it will be in one of these two belts. And it's just due for the fact that's where the pressure is applied to the wrap floor to help feed the wrap. I get questions every now and then about adjusting these cams more aggressively to help feed the wrap through. Really, I have found no difference between the first hole and the third hole on 99% of the machines. Because as you see, well, y'all can't see it down here, but there are different holes. You can make these cams more aggressive. And what that does, it's how much pressure it shoves the wrap floor up into the belts. And you can get it tight enough where it will not feed too. So just kind of a rule of thumb on them, just leave them in the bottom hole. Check them in case we miss it. But every now and then you'll find one that they have in a different hole than the other three. But just make sure they're all in the bottom hole. Okay, another common deal you run into if you start having a little wrap issue, these little bitty steel fingers up here, they should be approximately 1/8 to 1/4 inch off the belts. This is probably the most common wrap issue that I see, is these fingers are too wide. And a lot of times, let me back up a step. What happens is these fingers actually help to guide the wrap around the belt, because this wrap, whenever it feeds down the floor, it has to make a 180-degree turn right here at this. If these fingers are gapped open, especially more than a ½ an inch, it actually throws the wrap into this feeder belt. And then when it does that, it can't go up, it cannot make the turn. So if you are having a little wrap issues, and y'all saw that this one has a camera back here on the other side where you can watch the wrap, where you'll see it in your camera, it won't be nice and smooth. It'll bunch up, or it'll pop a little gap into it. And when it starts wadding up, if you'll just idle down, that will stop the wrap process. And like I say, the first place I check after you get that issue taken care of, that one wrapped, check these fingers. And it doesn't hurt just to glance at them every now and then, but like I say, 1/8 to 1/4 inch off the belt is what we recommend. Any questions on that?
How do you adjust?
With a hammer. I was waiting for that question. Yep. Just tap them with a hammer. Every now and then you get a stubborn one. You can get just a flat pry bar, tap underneath it just a little bit and bend it up. They do have a slight curve on the very tip of them. I come up with the brilliant idea last year on one that we were having some wrap issues with, that put a bigger curve to curve them up. Do not try that. It'll wad that wrap up in there so tight you have to cut it out. So, and these fingers, I'll show you all these fingers here in just a minute, and I'll touch on the duck bills when we fold it down. But there is a new duck bill out, and I'll show you what I'm talking about. Those are in just a second. As far as how they're going to work, we'll see. I think they're going to work good, because I'll kind of show y'all how the wrap works and get a little better idea. Also, you hay baler guys call it cover edge on your bales. Well, this will also pull the wrap around to the outside. If by chance your bales are wrapping and it's not going all the way to the edge and covering it, these little plastic pieces right here, make sure they're not broke, screws missing, anything like that. These are the same on both sides now. You 7760 guys, if they're old enough, they'll look like a spiral. And if you're having issues, somebody may have put them on backwards, because if they did, it'll suck the wrap back in instead of pushing it out.
Will those just wear out and not
Yes, yes.
wear?
And yes, they will wear. And a lot of times they'll look good, and you'll feel they'll just be, you know, slick wore, I guess would be the word for it. But yes, if you're...
Make it fluff out on the edge?
Yes, yes, it'll make it loose and flappy right there, and those are your culprit. And be real careful, especially on machines that are a couple of years old. You probably want to use some penetrating oil and kind of back them out and work them in and out so you do not break the bolts off in there. Kind of like saw drums. If you do, just do like a saw drum. Get a bigger screw. Yep.
Because it's just like a self-tapping screw.
Pretty much. These are actually fine threaded metric, the ones that are in there. Oversized screw going back, well, just like on a saw drum. The saw drum's a fine thread screw. The oversized screws are actually more of a wood metal screw. So, but if you'll work them, if you'll work it in and out, usually you won't break them off. It's when you hammer on them and try to suck them all the way out at one time. Of course, all of us have got power drills and power tools now, so just kind of work them. But yes, cover edge problems right here. And there is not a left and right or inside outside on these new ones, and there are 3 pieces to this. These are actually in 3 sections on both sides. And on really you 2 guys with the 7760s, it might not hurt just to go ahead and put the new style on there.
I think we're having a little bit of problem with the covers flapping out there, and then whenever you pick them up, the way we're picking them up, and it's going to stack it, then it's folding it up.
Pushes it out and can let something hang on it. Exactly. Like I say, it's the... Oh, I didn't think about that, but yes. Kind of like hay baler guys, when it starts wadding up, you got the little spiralies on the end of the roll. These do the same thing. You picker guys, I've had the question before, can you install that rotary brush on the front of a picker? Yes, you can. I'll have to get a price on it. I don't know the price right off the top of my head, but it can be done. And the reason I ask, I've got a customer with that's run a picker for several years, and he was dreading this stripper because, you know, just by nature, the stripper is a lot dirtier than a picker ever thought about being. With that rotary brush in there, he says his stripper is actually cleaner than his picker in the baler. So if you picker guys are interested in that rotary brush on the front, let me know. And
keeping junk up from underneath the belts and everything.
Keeping it clean, yes.
Oh, really? And it did it brilliantly.
Yep. That's right. Your picker last year, somebody had installed one.
I mean, cleaning the inside of the baler was nothing.
Yeah. Where I was showing you where the trash and stuff gets, that rotary brush has cut down on that tremendously. So, but all CS machines do have that rotary brush on the front. So, but the pickers are going to be the ones that are minus the rotary brush. But to answer your question, yes, that drives that rotary.
I guess that would cut out on rat problems.
A whole lot of stuff. Before we could monitor hydraulic oil temperature, roughly warm day, roll it to about 40 to 50 inches before you let off. On a cold day, it wouldn't hurt to roll it the whole bale. They say they put a warm-up circuit and everything in there. I would still recommend holding the floor switch. Now your first bale is going to look funny. You can always pick it out of the whole batch. If you don't, what it will do is choke your feeder belt up. You'll forget to do that twice. Most of the time you'll forget it at least twice throughout this machine, because when it chokes at the feeder belt, more than likely you're not going to be able to get that plug out of there. You're going to have to break the machine down in transport configuration and physically dig it out, and that is not fun. Another thing to remember on that, if you've got a 40-inch bale in there and your feeder belt or less than a 40-inch bale in there, one that you may not want to wrap out, you're going to lose the cotton in the baler too. You know, you'll have to feed it back through later. So it is critical to remember to hold that floor switch in the morning. Cold days, you stop for lunch, get back on it. I would recommend holding it again to get started there too. Another thing we found when it gets colder is a piece of cardboard in here. What I found, you can fold this out and leave a small section in the middle right in here. Just block it off with cardboard. I'd say about a third of it left, and that seems to help beater rolls and feeder belts, because they pretty much got the feeder and the beater problem solved between software and valves and stuff like that. But oil temperature has a whole lot to do with that plugging up on you. So, and we have accidentally left the cardboard in there on a hotter day. It seems to do fine. So, of course, it gets to be a 100-degree day. It might overheat on you, but just remember that's in there. That will probably be the biggest help to y'all over anything, because digging that feeder belts out is not fun. Because I think everybody who's owned one's done it at least once.
I wish I'd only done it once.
Exactly. You know, there were exceptions. We did have some other problems with those, but between, like I say, between some new valve software, they pretty much got it down.
Isn't that where you do the manual deal? You can, over there on the side, by that gun valve?
Yes, and I'll go over that here in just a minute. There is a way to try to work a plug out before you break it down, and it is in that RMB service mode up there, and I'll go over it when we go back to the other side. First, choke up in the morning for a feeder belt. Usually that does not work. Middle of the day feeder belt, you can bust it loose. Nearly all your beater plugs you can bust loose that way. Speaking of that, I forgot to go over identification. These 4 bearings in the floor of the accumulator are called your meter rolls. That is actually what meters the cotton out of the bottom of the accumulator. And it fishes them to, or it feeds them to what they call the beater rolls. That are the two bearings you're seeing right here in front of the tank. Let me back up one step. Your meter rolls should run 30 RPMs, plus or minus 5. Your beater rolls run 400 plus or minus 10. The next part of the system is your feed conveyor. It'll be referred to as your feeder, feeder belt, feed conveyor, and it's referenced in different ways in different parts of the book, but it is all the same. Speed on it should be 275. If you monitor any speed that you kind of look at all the time, I would say your feeder belt is one you want to monitor. 275. If that thing gets down to, I'd say the 220 range and keeps dropping, I would get off of it and stop it pretty quick. And then see if you can manually feed it through. Next is your baler. Your baler should run 120 RPMs. And this is the same on pickers or strippers. When the feeding components are engaged, they're engaged from the rear to the front. The baler's got to get up to speed of 120. The feeder belt gets up to 275. Then the beaters kick on at 400. And then your meter rolls. There is a reverse on the meter rolls only. And what that does, if you have a plug on your beater rolls, you do not want to keep shoving cotton in behind that plug. So you can pull that reverser valve. Well, let's go around the other side so I can actually show you. All right, this right here too is referred to as the accumulator valve. If you look up any parts for it, anything in the book, this is the accumulator valve. What's roughly controlled right here is your compactors, your gate latches, your feeder and beater rolls, your meter rolls, and the handler. The valve I was wanting to show y'all is right here. And like I say, this only reverses the meter rolls. And what you'll want to do is hold it for about 45 seconds to a minute and a half and let it suck everything back. And where this is, we'll have to crank the machine. I'll show you in a minute. It's under your R&B service. And like everything else in R&B service, it'll tell you what the tether does. Use it when you get a plug on your beater roll. Like I say, your beater rolls are, if you have any plug, more than likely that's where it's going to be unless it's first thing in the morning. When you do that, suck the cotton back, mash your beater rolls, and they will only run for so long. You can see them wad up and it'll automatically kick it out. When the gears start to roll back, hit it again. And just keep hammering it and it will finally bust that plug out of the beater rolls. As soon as it does, stop, run your whole components and suck everything through. And also, after you do that, that cotton, since it was wadded up, when it starts going through the baler, it will sound like you've got some huge rocks going through there. That is normal. It's actually probably not a rock that plugged you. It's a big wad of cotton. I think most of you guys, I've kind of walked through that on the older machines. Do y'all know about that? Using the three, running individual components? Okay, y'all have done that before. What I was getting at, anybody that hasn't run this before, if they want to come up here, we'll start it real quick. Okay. Here we go, let's get in our stripper. Okay, once again, R&B service. We need to fold it down real quick. Hold on, let's get back to our right mode first. Since we are here, we left it in the belt service. So what we need to do here is tighten the rock shaft back down, then back out and close the gate. Let's do that first. Okay, now, say we have a plug. You're gonna go back to your R&B service screen here, and this is the one you wanna use. So the first thing you wanna do is take your meter rolls and get the pressure off your beaters. And you're gonna do that by pulling this valve, holding the B button. As you see right here, these are all reversed. Let me show you. You're gonna wanna do that for about 45 seconds to a minute and a half, and you may have to do it several times. After that, right back here, right here are your beater rolls. What that's gonna do when it's plugged, you're gonna mash it, and it's probably only gonna turn approximately maybe a quarter turn. And whenever it locks down and kicks out, they'll roll back. And as soon as they stop rolling back, hammer it again. And just keep on hammering it. And another thing to point out, the noise coming from there, that is normal. It's not a bearing or anything going out. That is a normal noise. But anyway, you're gonna keep hammering on that until it busts that plug loose. Like I say, you may have to back up the meters again for 45 seconds to a minute and a half again, but this is a lot better than laying it down to dig the plug out. And simple as that right there. If y'all want to try to see what that feels like, let me pass that to you. B runs the meter rolls, and you do have to hold the valve out while you push it. And then after you do that, then you can hammer on the beater rolls. And now the baler and the feeder belt run together. So after you get it free, you can run your baler and your feeder belt. And like I say, it's gonna sound like rocks, humongous rocks are going through there. But that's just the chunks of cotton. D. Well, D runs everything. C, you can run just your baler and your feeder belt. See, go ahead and mash C. And see, it runs them slow. That would be enough to see if you got the plug out of it. Now, to run everything at one time, if you wanted to watch it, you do have to manually rev it up to 2100, which is wide open throttle. And then you can run your D button and run everything. Any questions on that? Like I say, if you want to see the icon to get to, hit your R&B service again, take you back to the 6 screens, and it's the bottom center icon. And that is a lifesaver when you have a plug. Cleanup. This is really the only controller that's exposed anywhere. Do not hit that directly with compressed air, especially when it gets cold, because that controller being cold and you hit it with hot air, I have had a couple fail because of that. So, and like I say, this is really the only one that's exposed anywhere out in the open that you have to be careful with, but be real careful with this right here. And everybody's good on how to get a plug out if needed. I know other guys, I've talked to y'all before on it. And you good, BJ? You see that? Did you get to see that? Okay. That any questions before we kind of move on to the feeder belt? Because that would probably be next. Because I think I've got everything on clean up, touch it there. One thing to add, if you do continually kind of have beater plugs, feeder plugs, run a calibration. make sure that your oil temperature is up to temperature, like I say, at least above 140. The hotter the better. And run your RMB rock shaft calibration first. Even if it's an RMB motor problem, those two calibrations go hand in hand, and you always want to run your RMB rock shaft first before your RMB motors cal. And also, if
calibration, do you recommend calibrating everything at the beginning of the year?
It wouldn't hurt. It would show up any problems that you might have. Of course, rat issues with any folding or unfolding, you're going to find them right off the bat. If by chance a rat, something's got in there, run everything and run the calibration. It will show you any problems that you could have. And like I say, the trick is getting oil up to temperature, and it does not hurt to run a calibration 3 or 4 times back to back even.
How often a year?
I'd say once you start, if you don't have any issues, just keep rolling.
Until you do have to?
Yep, until you, if you, like I say, if you start if you think that beater's plugging, like if it's never plugged in the past before and you plug it once, I probably wouldn't worry about it. But if it does it a second or third time, might be a good idea to go ahead and run your calibration on there. As far as your choke ups, kind of a little bit how it works. If you're plugging your feeder belt, with the exception of the warm up like we talked about earlier, this is why your RMB rock shaft is critical, because you may not have a feeder belt problem, you may have a rock shaft problem. Rock shaft may not be letting off enough, something like that. So whenever you do your calibration, you might actually find that you have a rock shaft issue rather than a feeding component issue. So also, whenever you do your calibrations, it's a good idea to check your speed sensors. The gap on your speed sensors, like on your feeder belt, meter rolls, anything like that, should be the thickness of a zip tie. Just your normal R44-302 zip tie, that should be the clearance that sensor has. And that measurement actually comes directly from one of the people that built this machine. So to give you an example how a minor adjustment will make, when I spent some time with the engineer on the feeder belt, just the feeder belt, we screwed the speed sensor out a half a turn. Or let me back up one step. We had calibrated the machine to where it was making a perfect uniform bale. The bale was square on the top, flat on the top, square on the sides. It was a picture perfect bale. We screwed the sensor out on the feeder belt, just the feeder belt, a half a turn, and it started making barrel shaped bales. So then we went and we screwed the sensor in one full turn, which would be a half a turn back where it was, a half a turn in. The bales became sway back. That is just with a half a turn of a sensor. So that kind of gives you an idea on minor adjustments can go a long ways. So if you are having issues with like your beaters plug-in, feeder, anything like that, it may be a good idea to check the speed sensor adjustment right off the bat before calibration. And carry you some extra speed sensors too on this machine right here. There's one on your meter rolls, one on your beaters, one on your feeders, 2 on the baler, and 1 on the wrap speed. Now pickers, add another 14 to that, because there are 14 of those sensors in your header on a picker. 2 per unit and 2 in the gear reduction case on your unit drives. So picker guys especially, get you a couple of extra ones. And I can give everybody the part number before we leave. So any questions on that? Okay, we'll crank it up, lay it down in transport. We're getting close to lunch, are we? No, we got a little bit. We'll lay it down in transport configuration and kind of go over the feeder belt. And like I say, general consensus on cleaning, usually people start in this and clean as they fold down. And then once you get it folded down and as you go back up, you're going to clean a little bit more. For guys that haven't had one before and cleaned, you guys that's done this before, roughly what's y'all's cleanup time after you get know the routine?
Depending on how many guys you got and what guys they are, you know?
Exactly. I'd say average. You're
Hour and a half. Depends on if you got spindle trouble. You know?
That's true. Now,
If you have any trouble, if it's the first season, you get it done an hour. At the end of the season, you got to change spindles and check it off a lot more.
and he is right. Your picker time is a whole lot more service just because of the head. And hour and a half is the general consensus that I do here. And like I said, it depends on you guys too. Another thing to caution, because it has happened before too, on your cleanup crew, watch them. Don't let them fill up with fuel while they're cleaning it off. So, and as you heard, that has happened more than once, more than one location. So that's why I try to bring that to everybody's attention. Which on the stripper, it's not as bad because the fuel tank's over there. A picker fuel tank is right here. So, all right, does anybody want to fold it in transport configuration? First thing y'all want to do is the lever up here. Because this will let you go all the way to gate and cradle, but will not go any further if you do not mash the lever. All right, this is transport mode. And we're transport mode here. Like I say, the first thing you need to do is mash the switch.
Up there.
Or mash the lever, excuse me. The lever. And then okay, if y'all want to hold it, and you hold the lever, hold the button, and do not let off of it until it has completed. Okay, good question. It will always tell you D for down. D for down. And you just press it and hold it. Okay, and watch the function of the machine. The handler comes down first, then it's going to set it in gate and cradle.
What if you let off?
It may have to back up a step or it may continue. It depends on where it's at. And you want to watch this procedure. That way, if we do have problems, you know where it's at, because your latch is coming next after gate and cradle. Now, this is all the handler cylinders doing the work. That is normal. And last, if you want to stop it right there, you can go ahead and let off. The reason we're stopping it there, it's a little easier to work on the feeder belt with the accumulator up. But otherwise, for transport, you would let it all the way down. And going back the other way, it's just the opposite. Accumulator up, handler up, R&B latch. And I always stress for you to watch what it takes to fold it up and down. Because that way when you call, you can say it went in gate and cradle, but your latches didn't come undone, or vice versa. All right. Let me kill it real quick. Okay. This is a step that you want where you can inspect your feeder belt. Same thing in R&B service mode. You can select your feeder belt, run it fast or slow. That's really the last thing in your R&B service as far as cleaning, besides your manual wrap. We'll go over that when we get to the wrap. New guys, new machines. Watch your feeder belt daily. Make sure it's tracking true. You can tell by a wear pattern. Now the lace is not a good thing to go by, because the lace may be crooked, but the feeder belt's still running true. So belt tension, does your machine have the spring loaded one, your older one? Okay. Just trying to think of anybody that might have the, we'll look at yours, BJ, because it may be the old style, but all the new ones are going to the floating feeder belt, the spring loaded one. They run looser than what the old manual adjust ones do. To me, compared to an old one, they actually feel too loose. But as long as you're not choking, running, it does have a belt gauge guide on the adjustment, and you know, make sure they're the same on both sides, but the big thing, run it, make sure it's tracking true. And like I say, watch for any damage to the lace. One thing to add, and it's hard for the picker guys to do it, it's pretty easy on the stripper. You cleanup guys especially, make sure that you get all the debris you can blown out from underneath the feeder belt. Laid down in this configuration, you can come in from the front up here on the accumulator and blow backwards, because that feeder belt is the Achilles heel of this machine. Once it stops, you're done. I mean, if you've got anything in the basket, emergency going, if that feeder belt stops, you're done. Because if, in case anything happens in here, this is stuck if that does not work. And what can happen is stuff is carried underneath, from the top of the belt, carried underneath. That's why it's critical to get all the debris out from underneath there. Say, in case of a fire, number one, but tracking issues. Because if you get too much underneath, it starts pushing against the bottom, and it'll start getting inside the belt, and then that really causes tracking issues. It varies year to year. On some years, you can blow it out. The cotton's, something different with the cotton. Doesn't give a whole lot of feeder belts issues. Other years, I don't know if it's dirty, stalkier, tougher, what the deal is, but some years you really have to pay attention and get a lot of the chunks out from underneath this feeder belt. As far as checking it, like I say, visual observation, walk across it, check the tension. This will be a good example for everyone, since this is a new belt, adjusted straight from the factory, what they recommend. And like I say, what I've said in the past on your older feeder belts, this does feel too loose, but it is correct. And these have been good. Have y'all got any of the new style, Sonny, with the floating feeder belt?
We got a new belt.
We got one.
You got one, it's the floater?
Yeah, I think so. I think our new CP is the one.
How would you describe it compared to the old ones?
It's a whole lot loose.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. But it still feeds, still pulls. Yes.
I'll have a feeling that it seems like it chokes up a little bit.
Now, if it does that, do tighten it just a little bit. That's roughly how you figure it. Figure if it needs tightening. And like I say, when you see the lace go by, just because the lace is crooked doesn't mean the belt is running crooked. Like I say, picker guys, y'all have a harder time of getting debris out from under the feeder belt because you can't hardly get in from the front side. Strippers, pretty easy because you got the whole platform right there to blow it out. All right, these are the wrap guide belts. And you're gonna wanna check these daily. It's kind of part of cleanup, and these are a little loose. And I didn't think it was possible until a couple of years ago. That was y'all's, yeah, that's right. Somebody called me and is having feeding issues on wrap, and kind of walked them through all the diagnostics, and I said, back off the feeder, but back off these guide belts just a little bit. Sure enough, it fed right through. And
Wasn't letting the rollers turn.
yeah, wasn't letting the rollers turn for some reason.
You damn sure know if they jump off the track.
Yes, you do. Yes, you do. When you're tightening these, an adjustable heel bar, you know, several people make them now. Gear wrench was the original. The long bar is what I found to tighten them the best with, because it's a carriage head bolt on one side, right here. And then the nut on the other side, which takes an 18mm wrench. The easiest way I found to tighten them is put the pry bar behind the head of the carriage bolt and tap the nut with a hammer and let you hold your tension right there and tighten it up. Whatever you do, do not try to pry on the pulley, because that pulley is plastic and it will break. And if you don't break it, you'll crack it, and then it'll break. And like he said, you don't want a wrap guide belt to jump off on you. It builds up cotton. Now there's an upper set and there's this lower set down here too. Now these actually feel good. These actually feel pretty good. These could be tightened. And like I say, check these daily. If we want to demonstrate before we leave today on how to tighten them, I've got the bar and everything to go through the procedure to give everybody an idea of what you're looking at. Like I say before, I didn't think you could get them too tight, but I guess to a point you can. So, while we're back here, these are the duck bills. These are the center 3 sections because it's got the 6 fingers. Where these are at are below the metal fingers here. The plastic behind the metals. These new ones are longer and curled upward. The idea of this is to throw your wrap upward.
See, that's all the trouble I had on these last year, they would fold.
Yes, and they were shorter.
Yeah.
Yeah, they were shorter, and it causes them to bend back, and the belts catch them. These should be longer and curl up to keep them away from the belts. But the idea of these is to, whenever that wrap goes in, to give it more of an upward angle to grab a hold. In the past, I've always thought that the wrap kind of rode the belts all the way around, went in, made the 180-degree turn. When you actually get out and watch one wrap, when it goes down, it kind of just throws the wrap up in there, kind of free floating, waiting for something to grab it. And then once the bale grabs it, then it makes the 180-degree turn. These are supposed to guide the wrap at a more upward angle so it can be grabbed quicker. It's going to be interesting to see. This will be the first year we've run these, but I can think of a couple of machines that might have a few issues that this would help. Thing is, I guess if you're not having wrap issues...
Would you change them beforehand, or would you wait till you had a problem?
That question can go either way. So check everything else out first and see, because all in all, the last 5 years has been pretty decent on wrap.
The only wrap problem I had was wrapping the starter roller, and that's really not going to affect. Is that going to affect that?
No.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
That brings us to another point on wrapping the starter roller. All the machines 16 and after have got the different lump buster bar in there. The lay-down roller chain we talked about earlier, even with this new style lump buster, if that chain gets loose, it can cause a starter roller wrap. And what we're talking about, a starter roller wrap, for new guys, is that roller right there above the fingers hanging down. One with the bars welded across it. The bad thing about a starter roller wrap up is your monitor tells you it wrapped, it tells you everything is good, it tells you to kick it out. Then you kick it out and there's no wrap on it.
And you push it out with your legs.
You push it out any way you possibly can.
Put a camera where you can see it.
Yeah, yes. That really, yes. Your camera on the side will tell. That's after you've already opened the gate is when you know. Like I say, 16 models and up have got that. And the lump buster, what we're calling there, are the fingers hanging down here. They moved it, and what it actually did was the lump buster would grab the wrap coming around and flip it back into that starter roll. If you have a machine that continually wraps the starter roll up, take that lump buster out, especially if it's a 15 and back. Just take it out. Your bales won't be as smooth, but it will 100% stop the starter roll problem. But with the new lump buster, check your lay down roller chain, make sure your lump buster's there, and you shouldn't have any problems. In fact, I don't know, did y'all wrap any of you 16, 17 model guys wrap a starter roll up? Y'all did, okay. Yeah, I think I talked to you about it. Okay, tighten the lay down roller chain, solve the problem. So, pickers, very rarely have I heard wrap starter roll on a pickers. But your stripper, I know y'all wrapped it up on a stripper. So I talked to him about it. Any other questions before we break for lunch? Say once again, the lay down roller chain, can't stress it enough. Check the tension, keep it lubed. And it's just it's a standard 80 chain if we do have to do anything with it.
How often do you suggest blowing out the Baler clutch?
The Baler clutch, I was going to go over that next after lunch. Yearly, it's more the carbon brush roller. We'll go over that. And I don't think we have any 11 backing guys here for pickers. That's a totally different wrap clutch if we do. Like I say, if it starts choking up, slowing down on you, you might watch your speeds. And like I say, anybody wants to write the speeds down, I can repeat them to them. But 275 on the feeder belt's what you want to watch. If it starts slowing down pretty good on you, then you might give that belt a couple of turns, tighten it up. But especially new ones, you're going to take a little while to adjust them in anyway. So if everybody has felt it, does anybody want to watch it run to see kind of what normal is? Okay, everybody clear? Go to your menu. This one's set up different, and then go to your stripper. Now when it's on your little screen, it's automatically going to come up to this screen. So, okay, your RMB service is the bell with the wrench. And then we are in the only one, yes, exactly, the one that's laid down into transport configuration. Okay, you got your choice of going your accumulator up and down. That's why I didn't want him to let it all the way down earlier. And then your C and D, fast and slow. And I always recommend starting out slow and then running it fast. So, and here is the tether right there.
C is slow.
Yes, sir. C is slow.
And stop it to be on.
Stop it at any time. And you do have to hold it to.
And that don't reverse.
And it does not reverse. And once you see the lace come around, there's where you look it over. And some of those are straight as an arrow, and some of them look like a snake been through there. And
that's normal speed right there.
Actually, it runs a little faster than that.
It does.
Mm-hmm. And where you're going to look at it at, you can look at it on run it a little bit. And the easiest way to do is get up here to the corners and look on each end and make sure it's not tracking to one side.
Oh, yeah, center.
And usually you can start to see it though. But that's what normal looks like. Pretty simple, and you want to check that daily, like I say, for any cleaning purposes, but the main thing to make sure you don't have any damage to it. One thing to point out to everybody when you got up here to inspect the belt, this is the rotary brush I was telling you about. It's actually out of adjustment. It's too wide because it should be touching the belts. Pickers that's got the brush on it, it's a two-piece brush, and really you want to take a look at those on the picker because they can be a yearly replace item. Especially on one side or the other, they are adjustable. The picker brushes are adjustable up and down, but it is a two-piece brush. So y'all might want to look at that on y'all's pickers. And the problem I see, and I think it was with y'all's one year, was having a belt tracking issue that was throwing me off. And finally we got to looking, and that brush on the front was wore right there above that belt. And we busted 4 belts before we could figure out where that was coming from. So that brush is critical on what it does. On a picker, when you fold down every morning, sometimes those brushes are bent. You know, they're bent way down out of the way. And it is critical to get them back touching. And this rotary brush has done wonders since they put this on. But it should be lightly touching. I mean, you don't want it to pull down every time it hits, but we'll adjust it before it goes home too, Joe. So, but it just down touching is all it needs. Does anybody want to fold it on back up into harvest configuration? Baler latch. Out of gate and cradle. Handler goes clear. And the gate comes down. Okay. Everybody pay attention to the gate. Watch the gate. When it closes, it'll actually drop into place. Right there. Now it's locked. Okay. All right, I guess we're going to go into load wrap now. Anybody who has never loaded wrap, we'll gather around on the back, or right here first. Let's do the same. Wrap is under your daily service. On a stripper, this is the only thing you've got under daily service. Now I want to show everybody this right off the bat. It will not go up and down. The reason being, the wrap hoist is down. Make sure your wrap hoist is up before it goes. Now it'll come down. All right. These are just used to get the wrap up there so the hoist can pick it up. There's one on each side. That square hole is hard to line up on a round shaft. There we go. Make sure it works. All right. The first thing, before you ever load wrap, make sure these are adjusted correctly to where it does not hit your wrap hoist or your wrap guides. So lift it up. And you're looking right here on the ends. Okay, before you go all the way up, look. Make sure it's not going to hit any of the channels or the guides. Okay, we were clear. Now let your wrap hoist down and make sure that it is going to spread the hoist like it's supposed to. Everything does clear. Now we can actually load wrap. Okay, everybody clear? You do need these to carry the wrap.
You don't get a robot to do that? You don't get a robot with it to do that?
Not yet. Give us time. All right, who wants to carry the wrap?
Got a volunteer.
We'll try it. The first thing, make sure you put it in the right direction. There's a sticker inside that says left, and the stripes are on the outside for left. Make sure they go in there that way. You do not want to have to unload them by hand. So this side will go to the left side. Okay, you ready? Okay, you got it? Second adjustment, and you don't know till you stick it up there. Are they wide enough to go in?
All the way up.
We need to, hold on just a second. Come out just a little. All right, now go in with that one. Yep. Make sure the latch falls. Yep. We probably want to widen them out just a touch on the next one. All right. Now there is none in the magazine up there. You do not have one loaded, and there's none in the magazine. You want to pick it up and get one on the rollers first before you put any more up in the magazine, because that magazine will only hold 4. If you try to put 5, a sign will come down, but you'll pop the pins on the cylinder. So always drop one down first. Okay, everybody clear? Everybody good? All right, now the wrap hoist. Missed it. Okay, everybody clear? Before we put any more in the magazine, we're going to drop that one down and thread it in. And to do that, you do want to move these, because you will hit your head on them. Yeah, we don't necessarily have to pin it. Yeah, I know, they're different, ain't they? You know, the problem was we were losing those down the highway. All right, you want to lift the deck, the handler, and just get it as level as you can stand on. Roughly right there. Okay, one thing about this ladder switch, it is a master kill for the entire machine. Once you drop this ladder, this machine will not move. You cannot use the tether. It will not operate with this ladder switch down. Okay, I know both of y'all are new, never threaded it before. So, y'all want to see how to thread it? Yeah. Okay, first of all, watch the hole over here. You will fall through it, especially late at night, and it does hurt. Okay, Okay, first thing, let the wrap hoist down. Let it all the way down until it drops. You want to come all the way back up to get this off the gear so you can thread it. Okay, here's a diagram. The way you want to thread it. So what you're gonna do, you're gonna come over in front of that back roller. See it?
Open the back roller?
Yeah, in front of it. You're gonna you can walk it to him. Okay, once you get it out, pull out just a little bit. Now we're going to tuck it in under here. Tuck it down behind the belts. That's enough to get it started. Everybody's fingers and everything clear. You're going to roll it. Let me let you get a picture of this. To that white tag down there. That white tag. I'll let you get over to see.
Yeah, I see it.
See it? Okay. Tell me when it's there if you want to film it. Tell me when. Right there. Okay. Now the next two deals are important. You've got to spline these gears in to the gears on the bottom. Yep. Okay. Yep, that's good. Also, look on the outside and make sure your pin, you can look out that side too, either side. Make sure your pin's in the white marks. You're gonna get good at this, by the way.
We don't have that much cotton. What are you talking about? One roll will finish up. Huh?
Be very careful with that hole. It hurts. Okay. Now here is probably the biggest question that I get calls on. You've got it threaded. Your gears are set. Your wrap hoist is the right height. You go to raise your handler and it stops right there. Yes, it will, because the wrap hoist is down. Don't worry about it, leave it. When you take off, put it in harvest mode, you can raise it with your handle inside. Handler position really doesn't matter, because you can leave it there or raise it up as you want to go. Because if you raise your wrap hoist all the way up to get it up, you can't get it back down to spline in your gears. So once you get it set, leave it set. You're threaded, you're ready to roll. Loading another roll of wrap, you would do it the same as what we just did. But when you get through, you got to climb back up there and spline your gears back up. We'll go ahead and load one more so everybody can see it. Okay, before you go any further, raise your wrap hoist. You want to try? Because it is a booger bear to get pinned in.
It goes up, right?
Goes outward.
Like this?
Yep. And if you'll look on the square hole out here.
Something like that?
Yep. And that is fun to get splined in.
It's better with these, probably doesn't.
Make sure it goes all the way into the stops.
You was wanting to widen or change them.
Yeah, and the way you do that is right here.
Just loosen and slide it in there.
Yes. And for the camera, the way that you would widen these out is just take it loose and move that locking collar slightly. But you don't want to get them too wide because you'll hit your rails. Okay? Okay.
Side goes to the right.
Yeah, to the right.
Those 4 plus that one.
Uh-huh. So 5 total.
If you can't load it but one, then you load it.
Exactly. Whoop, is it in? Did you trip? Okay.
And you can just, you don't have to do nothing, just go up there and load it, come down and grab another one. And
Yep. Okay.
And you don't have to do that every time, do you?
Yes.
Every roll.
Every
you gotta
roll.
get out and fix. Okay.
That is another question for the camera. Yes, you have to re-thread it every roll you load. Once that roll is used up, all 24 portions of it, then you drop the next roll, do your threading process again.
So, just pitch it out or?
Okay, good question. Everybody asked on the what's left on the end of the roll. It looks like you have another wrap left. It's not. Don't think it misfed and send something else. There's a set of hooks back there for empty roller storage. Or I have some people that just throw them on the side platform, and I got some people that throw them off. So, one thing I will caution you on, if you use the roll holders back there, make sure you roll what's left on the end of the roll up tight. That way it doesn't bleed over into your wrap. Because we have had that happen before. A piece of it get down, tangle in the wrap, and it will actually throw the wrap out of the hoist is what will happen. So, or throw the wrap off the rollers. So, anybody want to run the tether? You want to try it?
You better walk me through it.
I'll walk you through it. The C button will raise it.
We ready?
Go ahead. And just mash it until it stops. Right there. Now mash your B button. B is in Bravo. And keep it coming down. Keep coming down. All right, right there. Now mash your A button. And go all the way to the top. Okay? Stop. And you're stop right there, and now you can let the back down with the D button. Oh, I'm sorry. Back up with the A, and then mash the D button is in Delta. And you would repeat the process 1 more or 2 more times, or 3 more times to get a full magazine. Then on the ground, right there.
You don't want it to hit, or doesn't matter, or what?
Doesn't matter. Now it will lift the machine up a little if you keep going. So, any questions on that? So now we can put them back in. Now one thing, after you load the rest of them, you've got to climb back up there and respline your gears in because we lifted the wrap hoist up. So. Sure do. One thing to point out, your buttons up top when you're loading wrap will not work unless the ladder is down. And if the ladder's down, nothing else will work. So that ladder switch is critical. All right, anybody want to spline the gears in?
Stop right there?
Yep, you got them splined in. Now look on the outside. Make sure you're in the white.
Yep. Well, what about this? If you just stay with it, it'll keep coming down?
But it won't, as long as there is some part of a roll on here, it won't. I think once you get down to pretty small, it will actually drop it, which you really don't want that to happen. These are the hooks I was telling you about for the storage.
Use stuff back in there
Yes.
till next day or
Till the next day, or
clean it or reload it.
like I say, be careful of this right here with your leftover stuff, because it can get stuck in the rollers
Get
here.
the feeding, can it?
Yes.
And then these little roller tape just stick it a few places, doesn't it?
Yeah, that's what I see quite a bit. Gorilla tape seems to be very popular. Now, if you don't want to use these, you can take them off, or to make sure they don't hang, I've seen people put some just different straps or anything to bend them back and hold them back. Because a few cases I have had a wrap bolt come out and it grabbed these and bend them out, and then it will tear your wrap up from then on until you pull them back. So it's kind of a word of caution on it. But I will say most people don't use them. Most people throw the rollers down the side.
And what's this button here?
That's to feed it, to run your wrap.
Yeah.
And I don't know if I can get it to come down or not. If you try to load 5 rolls, this will come down. If it starts coming down, stop immediately. Because once it gets about right here, you want to stop. Because it will pop the heads off the cylinder pins. So, but as long as you load 1 first, you should be good.
Well, they just stack and just keep shoving them up, huh?
Just keep shoving them up.
Okay, when this runs out, it's going to drop another one, or no? You got to get this out.
No, you got to get this out of the way, your empty core.
Put it in here.
Put it out of the way.
Yeah.
And then let your wrap hoist all the way down until it drops, just like the first one we loaded.
Let this right here all the way down.
All the way
Till
down.
it drops.
And then start
Go back up, and then you got to retime your gears.
and thread it.
Yeah, and thread it, and then retime your gears.
And retime your
Make sure you're in
gears.
the white.
Exactly.
And I'm supposed to remember this.
Okay, one thing to add about the wrap, more the wrap rollers. This does have the new style to keep it from wrapping, the new style fingers to keep it from coming back and wrapping that bottom rubber roller. That was the greatest improvement that they come out with on the wrap system. That being said, the wrap rollers do not get as sticky as they used to from the glue, but you still want to clean the rollers. And depending on how bad the buildup, I would say at least check them every day. But also, what I would recommend doing daily is powdering them with baby powder. And what we found works best is baby powder without cornstarch. Cornstarch, after it gets run for a while, packed, it will actually become tacky over a period of time. Planter talc does not work as well, but baby powder without cornstarch, and powder all 3 rollers. Now, before you powder them, feel them, make sure they're not sticky, dirty, anything like that. And once again, the best thing to clean them with is acetone. And like I say, acetone in a squirt bottle, scrub pad, shop towels, stuff like that. Now, if you start having miswraps, like I say, the last 4 or 5 years, the wrap has been excellent, greatly improved. I know we've had a couple of problems here and there, but all in all, the wrap has been very good. The one thing that you will see inevitably is one of the end of wrap tags will come off and it'll stick to the roller. And the glue, when you pick it off, it will stick to that roller, and you will have to have acetone to cut it. So anytime you clean the rollers, powder them with baby powder, and you should be good to go, no problems. I've got some people that powder every roll. I got some people that powder once a day. Got some that just powder when they have trouble. So whatever works for you. And to go over the high points again, this your chain, keep it clean. Check your belts, check your feeder belt. Keep everything clean. Oh, one thing to add. Down the side of the feeder belt, especially right around the RMB latches, which is what you step on to fold it down, make sure you keep that clean. That's a good debris field right there. And it's the light leaves and everything else that are very ignitable. Keep those cleaned off at all costs. That's all I've got, unless y'all got anything else.